Yeah, okay. Yep, all right. Let's stick to the procedure. So Councillor Politis to move her notice of motion, and Councillor Politis will need a seconder. And then at that point, we can turn to... Thank you, Councillor Aboud. So Councillor Politis, do you wish to speak to your notice of motion?
Not to the amendment.
No to your notice of motion. Yeah.
Thank you, I do. So the Berkeley Street Towers, which actually addresses the proposed amendment that Councillor Iwasaki has put forward, they're not slated for demolition until 2051, and in fact, if at all, because they're currently investigating actually maintaining those towers. So there's work going on, and that statement was publicly made by the Minister to the residents a couple of weeks ago. What the residents need, and they need it desperately, is air conditioning in those towers. They're all over 55. Many suffer serious health conditions. I've been advocating on behalf of these residents for several years now, and there's been agreement that the air conditioning will be put in 2026. It would be really nice, given the age of the residents and the vulnerability, if that can be brought forward to this side of Christmas, and so the residents can enjoy for the first time in those towers a cool Christmas. And I'd like to finish by thanking the officers for that policy context. It's a really good piece of work and I really appreciate it. So if council could do that, and councillors can support it, it would be really lovely for those residents to enjoy cooling as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Councillor Aboud.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Councillor Iwasaki.
Yeah, I just want to attach some language, and that further refurbishments be considered as an alternative to the current planned demolition, and I'd like to speak to that.
Yep. I can check if that's agreeable to the mover.
It's not, because it's actually irrelevant. Those towers have been recently refurbished and they're not slated for demolition for 26 years.
It's not agreeable.
No.
So in that case, we can ask if you have a seconder, Councillor Iwasaki. Councillor Bolton to second. Oh, I think Councillor Iwasaki copied executive.
Just governance.
Oh.
Governance and councillors.
Okay.
Just the point, and that further refurbishments be considered as an alternative to the current planned demolition. And if it's irrelevant, that's also great. Yeah, we can get rid of planned demolition. I'm sorry, current. It'd be for planned demolition. So just to the planned demolition.
Okay. Councillor Iwasaki, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's good to hear that from Councillor Politis the urgency regarding the air conditioning, and that there's a long delay for any potential demolition. When I door knocked these towers last year, the residents were really concerned about where they were going to spend the rest of their lives, and there wasn't a lot of clarity given to them, and that has really stuck with me. I door knocked several floors of this building and talked to dozens of residents who many don't speak English or English very well, especially as a first language. And just the lack of communication from the state was really concerning to them. So it's good to hear that maybe there's the ability for them to live out their time and feel some security. But this wording, which really shouldn't be controversial because this council has already supported supported opposing the demolition of these towers by 9-1 just a few years ago. So it's really not a controversial thing, including a bipartisan support. So I think any kind of advocacy where we can help to protect people who are in vulnerable states from losing their homes, whether it's now or in a hypothetical decade or two, I think we have that opportunity to do that, and I'm happy to advocate on behalf of the residents that I spoke to directly.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Councillor Bolton.
I would just say that I support the amendment. I support the original motion, but I think the amendment makes it much stronger. And if this estate was recently refurbished, then there's no need for demolition whatsoever, and people should have that security. On the question of, I guess that's a substantive motion, we're debating the amendment, but I just think there's no need. I think it's a no-brainer to include this amendment as part of it, and I support the amendment as well as the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Are there speakers against? No? Are there any further speakers in relation to the amendment? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. We'll now return to the substantive. Yes. All those in favour? Councillor Svensson, Councillor Pulford, Councillor Abood, Councillor Bolton, Councillor Irvin, Councillor Iwasaki. All those against? Councillor Miles, Councillor Theodosis, Councillor Davidson and Councillor Politis. So we'll now return to the substantive, and that's incorporated the amendment. Are there any further councillors who wish to speak to the substantive motion? Councillor Abood.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it would be great if we write a letter asking that these homes are cooled before Christmas and that also they don't be knocked down ultimately, which is in the subtext.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Bolton.
Just one brief point to highlight the issues. A friend of mine who was doing research about how to help people cope with extreme heat in cities, one of her projects, she was around that area and she found a couple of very elderly people who come from Barclay Street estate, and they went to the train station because it was cooler. It was at night, or it was sort of evening, it was cooler. And generally most of the some of the public housing towers are actually a lot better than a lot of private apartment blocks, actually, in terms of their thermal capacity, actually. But for this, these two elderly people, it was actually much cooler at Jewel Station in the evening, daylight saving hours, than it was. So, yeah, it's a very necessary issue that Councillor Politis has raised.
Thank you. Are there any further councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bolton, Councillor Politis, do you want to use your right of reply?
Yeah, look, I will. The residents have been advised their towers are not being demolished until 2050. I think any communication that suggests that the towers are at risk of being demolished really not only undermines their confidence that they've got somewhere to live, but it's hugely destabilising for them. Now, I understand that Councillor Iwasaki has door-knocked
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but nobody spoke against the motion, so I'm curious about the right of reply.
Because there was an amendment. Thank you. Councillor Politis, please continue.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. My point is that it undermines the residents' confidence, and these are vulnerable people. And I have been in meetings before supporting the residents when it has been suggested to them that they might be thrown out on the streets and have nowhere to live. So when all these efforts have been made to reassure these residents who are mainly in their 70s, some in their 80s, that they will be living there for the next 25 years. I don't understand why we would be putting this kind of communication out there. It is enormously undermining and it is destabilising.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. That concludes the debate. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to solar energy system permit requirements in heritage overlay. Councillor Irvin. And Councillor Iwasaki to second.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a notice of motion that relates to part of our planning scheme where people who are wanting to put solar panels on buildings that fall within a heritage overlay, if those solar panels are visible from the street, currently they need to apply for a planning permit to install those. And this means that there is a hurdle in terms of, I guess, the process of installing solar. You have to sort of jump through the planning, application process. And it also means that in some cases, council is quite limited in what we can approve. And in some cases, we have to ask people to relocate solar panels so that they're not visible or to reduce the visibility as much as possible. And this is an issue that it does come up, fairly regularly with people. And these are people who are really trying to do the best in terms of aiding our shift as a community to renewables. And as we just passed earlier tonight, we've got our really amazing climate emergency action plan that sets out targets for rooftop solar. So in our previous plan, we set a target and then managed to exceed it. It was really amazing to see. And now we've set new targets of 250 megawatts of rooftop solar by 2030. And we also want to see at least 25% of Merri-bek households have rooftop solar. At the moment, it's about 14%, and 20% of businesses have solar, up from currently 11%. And I think so much of our area is covered by heritage overlays, and to me, it's a real obstacle to be able to achieve those goals if people need to kind of step through these planning requirements and also may not be able to install solar panels at all if they're visible. And so I'm introducing this notice of motion because a few years ago, the state government actually changed some planning requirements where councils now have the ability to switch off these permit requirements. It is a process to go through. There's extensive consultation with the community. There's a planning panel. It's considered by state government and ultimately approved by them. But I'm just asking for a report on starting that review process. And yes, thank you. I was going to say, I should have said I am just moving a slightly amended version just to see if there are any other mechanisms we can consider in the meantime, because that is sort of a 2+ year process. And also just to ensure that we're consulting with our new Livability Advisory Committee to seek their feedback. And yes, that's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Councillor Irvin. Councillor Iwasaki.
Yeah, I'm very happy that the state government has included this kind of mechanism, because I've had a lot of discussions with residents in my area, which has a lot of heritage overlays, and they don't, in the fact that they don't understand how we can be encouraging, and not just locally at the council level, but how the state government can be encouraging solar uptake while not allowing the mechanism to allow them to install solar panels on roofs that, while they're in a heritage overlay, may not have the highest heritage value, as a lot of places are corrugated roofs that that the heritage value is it's not in the same I guess in the same way as we're talking about like the facade and the historical value. So there's been a disconnect in the ability to allow people to install solar panels and help the community reduce its carbon emissions. So very glad that we can get this process started.
Thank you, Councillor Wasaki. Are there any further speakers?
I'd like to speak. I've sort of got a question as well, and yeah, a couple of questions. Firstly, I actually, in principle, I'm in support of this, but I would like to see some sort of consultation done, because there might be some things I'm not thinking about, where maybe certain heritage properties, it might be suitable to have solar panels very visible, and maybe there might be other more pristine ones that maybe not, I'm not sure. And I think I'm not an expert in heritage really, so I
Are you
wouldn't-
asking for an amendment?
Yeah, I'm sort of really asking a question about, I think there needs to be consultation. And then secondly, the second question part is that solar panels aren't protected in the activity centre zone. So if a big high-rise goes up or mid-rise goes up beside you and overshadows, you know, your solar is all gone. I know that from trying to assist other residents who went to great expense to put in solar panels, not realising they weren't protected. So there are other, I don't know if there's heritage buildings in an activity centre zone. So anyway, so I guess I've got those two questions, consultation and heritage buildings in an activity centre zone.
Can I ask, I've got a question for the director.
Is it to clarify Councillor Bolton's question?
It's basically to turn that into a question to the director.
Yes.
Yeah. So is my understanding correct that this would have to initiate a planning scheme review, which would then go through the 3 gateways of major consultation?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Pulford, the review component, the original notice of motion, that if council were to then make a decision with the report to conduct a review process, that would include a full community consultation and exhibition process. The more recent addition around the moratorium is less clear, that doesn't contain community consultation within it, although you would take it to mean that it's a temporary measure.
Just through you, Mayor, like this notice of motion is, as amended, is calling for a report, and the report would certainly consider what community engagement would be required as part of that report.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Pulford and Councillor Bolton. Are there any further speakers? No, if there's no further speakers, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Yes. We now have our last notice of motion, 8.8, Preserving Merri-bek's Proud Migrant History Through Art and Storytelling. Councillor Theodosis to move and... Oh my God. Councillor Iwasaki to second. Your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I can speak, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
This notice of motion is about bringing together and collecting migrant stories from across Merri-bek and finding ways to showcase our proud migrant history through art and storytelling. Our city is proudly diverse. Many migrants have come from all corners of the world and moved to Merri-bek to start a new life, including my parents. Many worked in factories, local schools, hospitality venues, in healthcare, universities, small businesses, and established clubs and community groups that are still active and alive in Merri-bek today. As our community changes and grows, we must find ways to record and celebrate these stories. Stories of resilience and stories of hope. Stories of the people who helped build and shape our vibrant city into what it is today. This motion tasks council officers with investigating options for building on previous materials to collect and record migrant stories across Merri-bek, including those relating to residents, people, community clubs and building and other places, and curating those stories through an arts program and sharing them through our libraries. Some of this work has already been done through documentation of these stories, particularly in the 70s and the 90s, which is great. And I think a project like this could build on that work and expand it further into art and storytelling and share those stories of generations since. This is a way to celebrate our proud migrant history and preserve these stories for future generations and record and celebrate our vibrant community.
Thanks, Councillor Theodosis. Councillor Iwasaki.
Yeah, I'm really excited to second this motion because I am myself a migrant, and a third of residents in Merri-bek are migrants, have not been born in the city. And I would guess, am I the only one here that has been born overseas? So we should have 3 at least to fully represent the sea, across the sea. But yeah, I mean, to really represent our community, a third of our councillors should actually be from born overseas. And I know a lot of us have that connection from our parents being born overseas, and having that language connection. It's so important to keep that, because when you move to a new country, you lose a lot. And you always have, and I'm speaking and wanting to second this really strongly, because one of the things that you feel when you move to a new country is, am I going to be included in this society? Will I be accepted? And there will be plenty of people who will tell you you're not. It's already happened to me. And by going and preserving history and being proud of our heritage, we can affirm that, yes, we are all belonging to this community.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Are there any further? Oh, Councillor Politis.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this motion, and I'm really proud that our youngest councillor is actually wanting to preserve history, which is often considered the preserve of older people who, you know, want to kind of relive or make sure that the past is alive. But Merri-bek has such a wonderful, rich history, and there are fantastic stories to be told. And we have an opportunity to gather the stories of some of our elderly migrants who have worked in the area and worked in factories in Bree Street. So Bree Street was once full of factories. My mum and dad both worked in factories in Bree Street. And you live there, which is right now, which is yes, where my dad made furniture. But the wonderful thing, and it really captures people's imagination when I hear elderly people tell the stories about how they organised, how they came together, how they acquired real estate. And a lot of these community clubs and ethnic clubs own a lot of property across Merri-bek, which they fundraised and developed themselves. And so I think we could really learn from the story, because back then there wasn't the government support, there wasn't the council grants available that there are now, and they got together, they organised, they unionised, multiculturalism was really born on the factory floors, including in the factory floors in Brunswick, where there was very, very strong industry. So I'm really excited for any project which gathers these stories and shares them for future generations in Merri-bek.
Thank you, Councillor Politis.
And beyond.
Yes. Councillor Bolton.
I'm sure we've all got lots of things we'd like such a project to do. And actually, previously, I think Council Lambros Tapanos was also pushing to do something like this around the libraries. But there are some parts of migrant experiences that aren't really talked about in mainstream histories of migrant communities. And one that I would love to see really captured is that community childcare really came as a result of women migrant factory workers. That was one. But then also, you know, the history of Triple Z, which had to operate as a guerrilla radio station at the bottom of Trades Hall, and it's based in Brunswick now. But also the Turkish Australia Workers Association, where, you know, there are a lot of migrant shop stewards who played a really massive role in the workers' movement. There are a lot of parts that are not taken up by mainstream histories, and it would be good for some of that to be reflected.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. We will need an extension of time. Councillor Aboud to move, Councillor Irvin to second. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you. If there's no further speakers, I'll put Councillor Theodosi's notice of motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. It can be recorded as unanimous. Thank you. We now will move on to foreshadowed items as we don't have any notices of rescission. So, councillors, do you have any items that you would like to foreshadow for the next council meeting? Okay, if there are none that we can think of at the moment, we'll move on to closing the meeting to the public. So I'd like to thank those still watching at home and to the members of our gallery. Thank you very much for coming this evening. So, councillors, can I have a mover to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Aboud, Councillor Bolton to second. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Okay, and I'll declare it closed at 9:30.